Hey YouTube, it's your girl Stacey Celeste, and I'm back with you guys with my January wrap-up video. So January 2022 was a decent reading month for me. I got a total of 7 books read. 4 of them were actual paper books, and then the remainder of the books were audiobooks. And then some of the actual handheld books that I read, I also listened to them on audio as well. So with that being said, I don't want to go into too many things. I just want to get started so we can get this in and out and so I can move along with my day. All right, guys, so the first book that I finished in the month of January, I actually finished it on the first day of January. So January 1st, I tried my darndest to finish it in December, but didn't happen that way. But it's all good because I get to talk about it right now. And that book is none other than 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is a very, very popular book. It has been very, very popular. Most of the people that I hear read it, they're like, oh my God, it's so great. I actually read Daisy Jones and the Six, and I really loved that last year or the year before last. And that's also by this author, Taylor Jenkins Reid. And so, yeah, I've been wanting to read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo for so long, and I finally decided to pick it up and give it a go. I actually listened to this book on audio, and then I also had the paperback, so I kind of had a mixture, like a hybrid reading experience, which I recommend hybrid reading experiences because I feel like you get like the most out of the story, especially if it's a good narrator on the audiobook, which this one was pretty good. So essentially this book is about Evelyn Hugo, who is this 1950s starlet. She gives me the vibe of like a Marilyn Monroe vibe, except she's a, Caribbean or like a Dominican or Cuban. I think she might be Cuban, a Cuban American woman. She literally has 7 husbands, and each part of the book is dedicated to one of her husbands and the experience she has with one of her husbands. So the story and the premise of the story is that Evelyn is now in her older age, and she wants to give a memoir. So she wants to give her story away to this particular reporter, and there's a reason why it's that particular reporter, but I'm not going to say because I don't want to give the book away. So essentially she's telling her story through her marriages, and yeah, I felt like the book was really, really good. I'm like, as far as a rater, I rate books on based on, hey, do I understand what the author was trying to accomplish, and did they accomplish that? And for that reason, I gave Evelyn Hugo 4.5 stars. Could easily have been 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed the read. The reason why I didn't give it a whole 5 stars is that once I finished reading it, it was like, okay, that was good. And then it didn't really stick with me after that. Like, I definitely loved the concept of the book. I loved the writing in the book. I thought that I loved Evelyn Hugo. Like, I love the character Evelyn Hugo. I think that she is just so representative of like, do you boo, except she was doing you boo in the 1950s, which was kind of unheard of, right? So yeah, I think that the story was really good. If you want something that's really entertaining, that's a good one. There's a message behind the message, and I always like books that are a little bit deeper than the surface, and that was one of those types of books. So 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Taylor Jenkins Reid, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Really loved it. You should take a look at it if you are looking for I would say if you're looking for a fun book, like it was a fun book to read because she lived a dazzling life, but there's also a weightiness to it. But the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid does it, it's not like it's not sorrowful. It's actually pretty impressive. And Evelyn herself was a pretty impressive woman. And yeah, I just thought the characters were written well. It was just a very entertaining read altogether. So the next book I read on audiobook, and it is a nonfiction book by Amy Morin, and it's called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. Take back your power, embrace change, face your fears, train your brain for happiness and success. This book is essentially about just that. Goes through 13 things that mentally strong people don't do, and it also gives you kind of these checklists of like, hey, do you do these things? And it gives some good insight, some good stories. The author herself has gone through a lot of tragedy, and she is able to express how, you know, these things, how she had to use these things to kind of bounce back from some stuff that she didn't think she was going to bounce back from. So overall, I gave this book, what did I give it? I gave this book 4 stars. I think that for what the author was trying to do, it was really good. She definitely, I think that the fact that she had a lot of, you know, that she had to embody these things, that her story was so striking is one of the reasons what made it, you know, very good, at least for me. It was definitely something that I could take things away from. It's not what I would call a nonfiction Bible for me, but it was definitely a nonfiction book that I did not waste my time reading, and that I really, really was able to take some pointers from and implement them quite immediately into my life. So yeah, I gave that book 4 stars because I feel like it accomplished what it needed to accomplish. But at the same time, with nonfiction books like this, I think that a lot of the stuff is reiterated like in other books. There was nothing in here that was like super profound, that like, you know, but I thought that the way that she conveyed it, the way that she used examples, it was really good, and I like the audiobook. And yeah, 4 stars. Thank you, Amy Morin, for writing that book. It was pretty good. All right, so the next book that I finished, this book I actually did a book review on my Instagram. If you haven't subscribed to my Instagram, check it out. I'm not gonna make you subscribe, but check it out. _Stacy.Celeste_. I went through a full review of this book, and this book, I don't know because it's so early in the year, but it's definitely been one of my favorite books that I've read. And yeah, that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a behemoth of a book. This is a very tough book. You can see, I think, so you guys let me know if you've read this book. Who do you think this is on the cover? I happen to think this is Willem on the cover, and the reason why is because it said that Jude was like racially ambiguous, and this guy is, to me, he is clearly white. So I'm gonna go with the Willem, and this face is, yeah, the book. It's the book. Like, I was making this face as I was reading this book. But the writing is absolutely gorgeous. It's impeccable. It's beautiful. The characters are so drawn out. They're so, you know, even though like you don't even have to have met people like this to feel like you know them. Like Jude, Willem, what's his name? DJ, JB. It was JB, Jude, Willem, JB, and Malcolm. So Jude, Willem, JB, and Malcolm are like, I love them. I love their friendship. I love their love. I think essentially this book is about love, but it is very triggering. There's so many triggers in this book. So this whole book is a freaking trigger warning. So if you are, you know, rape, death, self-mutilation, kidnapping, domestic violence, all that stuff is in here, and some more stuff. Okay, so it is definitely a heavy read. It was one of those that sometimes like I would have to meditate afterwards. I had to really be conscious of my own mental health while I was reading through this book. So that's one of the things, like, you have to, if this book is becoming something too much, take the time, put it down, breathe, because it is that powerful. And I think a reason why it's very powerful is because of Hanayana Gahara's writing. Like, the writing is just, it is so good. I oftentimes, I have this book on my bookshelf in my living room, and sometimes I'll just be watching TV and I'll just come and pick up this book and just read some of my marks and just fall in love over and over again with the story. Like I said, this is an epic book. It's over 800 pages, at least this edition is. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I did pick up To Paradise, which is the book that came out, I believe, in 2022 this year or earlier this year. And I haven't started it yet. Well, actually, I started it and I put it down because I wanted to read something different before I got lost in that. But her writing is amazing. A lot of people call this book like trauma porn, and I definitely understand where they come from. But like, the reality is that there's nothing that's happened in this book that does not happen. Unfortunately, this is not a magical realism book. This is not a fantasy or a book about things that don't happen. Now, this is a fictional book, but everything in here is stuff that has happened to people, and people have to figure out how to live through very, very traumatic events. And, I just felt like I felt for Jude. I think I had so much love for Jude because personally, I do understand, I don't want to go there, but personally, I could relate to Jude in a sense that some stuff happens and you just have to figure out how to keep going. I admired him for keeping going. There was a point in this book, at the end of the book, you've read this, you know what happens at the end of the book, and I just wanted to throw the book, and I just couldn't understand it. I couldn't get it. Why is this happening? But at the same time, to me, a good book does that to you. A good book can hold you in. A good book can make you cry. A good book just, it doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel comfortable. That's not what comfort and good and happiness is not necessarily what makes a good book. It's the writing, it's the author being able to convey a story and make you feel it in every part of your DNA, every atom of your cellular structure. I don't know if that's right, but all those things, all those elements that make us who we are, this writing, you can feel it in all those places. So I gave this book, if you can imagine, I gave this book 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, I think it'll definitely be one of the top books of 2022 for me, but we still got a lot of 2022 left, and God willing, I make it through every single month. So the next book, I also listened to it on audiobook, but I loved it so much that I actually picked it up from the store because I want to go back through it. And this is another nonfiction book by none other than, drum roll, Will, oh my gosh, Will by Will Smith. And I know my lighting is starting to do some weird things, but y'all hang in there with me. But Will, this was so good. I thought it was really, really good. I want to say the first 3/4 of the book, maybe that center part of the book when he was exploding as an artist, as a actor and all these things, his career was on sky high. He was definitely giving me narcissistic vibes, just a little bit. And I was just like, oh, I don't know about this, but let me tell you guys how this comes around in the end of the book, how this ties in. I think this was a remarkable book. The audiobook is incredible. I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to sit down with this again, at least through the second half of the book, and listen to the audio, take my notes, take my tabs, because there are so many gems in this book. And if you are a reader, Will Smith is also a reader and he shouts out so many books in this. Like, I had my Goodreads, like I was listening and like I was like, okay, Goodreads, because he also shouts out so many good books. So I highly recommend this book. If you're like me and you're a 90s baby, I'm barely a 90s baby, so I was right in it with Will Smith. I knew all of his movies. I watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air every single episode, probably. I grew up with Will Smith on the television. So this memoir just really hit home, and I thought he did an impeccable job. And even the cover is, I think the cover is super duper cool, y'all. Look at that cover. So cool. So Will, I know some people hesitate to give memoirs stars ratings, but I actually did give this 5 stars because I enjoyed it so much, and I enjoyed the audiobook, and I cannot wait to get back into this and pick up where like some of the gems that he put in here. So 5 stars, loved it. Kudos to Will Smith. Beautiful person, beautiful family. Yeah, loved it. All right, so what I realized about January is that January for me, it was a big nonfiction. Evelyn Hugo and A Little Life were the only 2 fiction books that I actually read in January. So the next book that I read is also another memoir / self-help type book, and it is, where'd she go? This one, Unapologetically Ambitious by Shelley Archambault. This book is a somewhat memoir about Shelley Archambault, who is or was a Fortune 500 CEO Silicon Valley tech company CEO, and she also is a board member for some Fortune 500 companies. And this basically is her blueprint for how she got to become a CEO. This book is Shelley herself is, like, to me, what I would call a very type A individual. She's very structured. She's very intentional. Ever since she was very young, she knew exactly what she wanted, and she created her life, designed her life in order to get exactly where she wanted to be. And so she basically is telling us, hey, this is what I did. This is how I approached my life. This is how I approached my career, my family. This is how I brought it all together so that I could become a Black woman CEO. And for me, I do work in corporate America, in a corporate space. And what I really liked about this book is that I never considered being a CEO of a company. Like, that was never something that I thought about or even necessarily wanted to do. But in reading this book, she broke it down in a way that made it accessible. So even if I don't want to be a CEO, I know that, hey, these are some things that I can do to get there. This is some of the things that I can implement into my life on a day-to-day basis, or how I choose my friends, how I choose my mate, how I, talk about kids, or what I do with, kids, whether I have kids or not. These are some of the things that I can do to reach that goal. So I ended up giving this 4 stars because I think at first I was like, okay, this is 3 stars. I don't believe this. I don't believe that you can create this type of life. Like, it's not that easy. It's not that. But then I realized, maybe that is a defeatist mindset. Maybe you can do this. Like, maybe that is something that, like, I've been taught, like, you can't force things, or you can't have this and this. And even though in my mind, I think that I feel like what popped up in reading this book was that in my heart, before I read this book, I think that I felt that there were more barriers in the way than there actually was, and that my mind was probably one of the barriers that I had to take a look at. So I highly, highly recommend this book to anyone, man or woman, but especially women, especially a woman of color who is in a corporate space and who's highly ambitious, unapologetically ambitious, and wants to become a CEO or wants to be in that C-suite. For myself, I could see myself in a C-suite. I could see myself in a C-suite, but I'm not totally sure yet. I definitely can see myself in a upper level management role within my company, but at the same time, I guess what I'll say, what I got from this book is that I need to be more intentional about my career, and I think that while she was very intentional about being a CEO, I need to be very intentional about not only, moving up in my career and getting to that C-suite, but also cultivating the things that I like to do on the side and being more intentional about what I do as far as YouTube or as far as Instagram or even my own website and things like that. So kind of, figuring out, hey, what is my North Star? What do I want to do? And being strategic about getting there. And that was what this book was. So many gems, as you can see. And yeah, this is Shelly. That's her right there. And yeah, I really like this. I gave it 4 stars. The reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is that I did kind of feel like, most people don't know what they want to be in high school. And sometimes it is not as linear as what this felt like, and I know that it was not linear. This is a short book that she probably could write an 800-page book about her life, but I do appreciate the shortness and the brevity of this book. But I just feel like there's maybe some layers, some depth that I would like to have seen, especially when you talk about this type of a goal and this something being this lofty, and like, even though it shouldn't even be lofty, but like, that 5 was not there. It was close, but it just wasn't there yet. So, but thank you. My coworker, she actually is the one that told me to read this book. So I'm so appreciative. This is one of the books that I recommend to everybody that I come across with, especially, minority people in corporate spaces that want to actually move up in those spaces. This is one of the books that I definitely think you should read, have on your shelf. Super short, super easy to read, and yeah, unapologetically ambitious, what it looks like. My final book, y'all. So my final book was a very, very short book, and I actually listened to it in like 24 hours. I think it was like a 4-hour audiobook. I was on the road for work, and I wanted to get something about kind of managing my business and managing my stuff. And on Scribd, I came across this book called Manage Your Day-to-Day, Build Your Routine, Find Your Success, and Sharpen Your Creative Mind by Jocelyn K. Glee. This book was awesome. I thought that the tips and the pointers within it were so relevant. It were things that I could actually implement right away. It also was, like I said, very easy, very brief to read, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Right now for me, I am trying to, I have a lot on my plate. So that's where a lot of my reading has come, with trying to manage and strategize and prioritize what it is that means the most to me, and the areas of my life that I want to cultivate more, and the areas that I have to figure out, how to manage, So a lot of my books have been in that space, as you guys kind of heard, and this book kind of coincided with that. I think some of the things that I got from this was just really creating time and rituals around the time to be creative and to do deep work. So that's one of the things I really want to implement in my life now, is just deep work, because with my job, I can easily go into firefight mode and get into my emails and spend 8 hours in emails and not do anything that is actually creative and actually developing, okay, I'm in sales, so how am I getting this number that I need to get? But versus just shooting fires or fighting fires all day. So I think, if this makes any sense, I think that this book kind of gave me pointers to how I should structure my day in order to make sure that I get time for deep work. That is key. Key to victory is giving myself time for deep work. And it is tough because I have a lot of meetings and things like that. So this book was very, very beneficial for me, and it's something that I will probably revisit because I don't have, or I might even try to find the hard copy of it if there's one available. But yeah, that is the last book that I read. This is just my iPad. I'm just kind of like trying to make sure that I got everything. But that was the last book that I read in January 2022. If you guys check out my Instagram, you can see what my February TBR is, and you can also see I'm doing a photo challenge by Read So Lit photo challenge this month, which happens to be Black History Month, and it's basically featuring a lot of books by Black authors, stories about Black people, and yeah, it's been a blast. Like, it's been so fun coming up with those pictures and posting them. So if you guys are looking at what I am, or if you want to see what I'm going to read this month, or if you want to be entertained with some Instagram photos daily, check out my Instagram channel, Instagram page, I guess it would say, _Stacy.Celeste_. So I plan to be very, very active on Instagram. I plan to at least get one video or wrap up video up on here per month. And then I also really am toying with the idea of creating a website and going into that. But I'm just going to kind of take it one step at a time, do the best that I can with the time that I have. Because like I said, I do have a day job and it does take a lot out of me, but I can do it. I can do it as long as I am having fun and loving life. And yeah. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching this wrap-up video. I really appreciate your views or whatever. Not that I don't have a lot now, but honestly, one person watching my video is a blessing. It's a blessing, and I'm so thankful. But yeah, until next time, happy Black History Month, February. I can't wait to get back to you guys with what I read in February, and then hopefully maybe get some fun content for you guys on here. If not on here, definitely check out my Instagram channel. I'm a lot more active on there. And hope you guys have a blessed rest of the day, evening, night, whatever, whenever you're watching this. And I will see you guys on the flip side. Peace out. Bye, guys.